their servers go offline. You say, I always have internet. Well, are their servers always online?
Well, exactly.
Regardless of the 30 hours that it was down for this patch, you have encountered it multiple times where their scheduled maintenance took you offline from playing. And it's just like, who wants a single player game? Who wants to be playing God of War 2022 Ragnarok and you're halfway through a boss and it kicks you out and says, sorry, server maintenance? Like, this is the world that we're headed towards if we don't find some way to stop it. What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to NeverLag. I'm one of your hosts, Levi, joined by the man who fell in the pit, Zach. And this is another episode of NeverQuest, the show where we sit down each week and talk about nonsense and what games we've been playing and whatever else might be on our minds, as we'll see today. But if you're into it, you can support us over on Patreon at patreon.com/NeverLag, and then you can support us as well right here for free by doing what you're doing, watching here on YouTube and listening wherever you get your podcasts. So with that out of the way, let's talk games. What's crack-a-lackin'? What's going on, Zach?
Just enjoying some Elden Ring. Finally getting back to it after going to Biomutant for a while. So that's kind of been my life at the moment. Yeah. How about you? I feel like today's one of those days where someone's like, "Hey, what's new with you?" And you're like, "I am just a nothing of a human being."
Dear God, nothing. Absolutely nothing.
I should lie about something because I am supremely boring right now.
It happens. I mean, to be fair, our lives are usually pretty boring. We just do our best to make them not sound boring. So
yeah.
You're restarting Elden Ring, correct?
Yeah. So I started on PS5, got about 10 hours in, and just the graphical fidelity was not where we wanted it to be. And I caved and spent an extra $60 and bought it on PC. And now I'm playing it on PC. And, you know, it's a game that I'm happy to support. I'm not happy with how it launched, but the game itself's phenomenal. And it looks better on PC for sure. So I think it's worth it so far. But
yeah. Of those 12 million sales, 6 of them, there were only 6 million people.
That's right.
They all had to buy it twice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had to do the same thing. So life's been busy. Again, nothing exciting. A lot of work. Just a busy, working, tiring weekend. So not as much gaming as you would like. And coming in hot on a Tuesday here. So I guess I want to start things off right away. I kind of have an agenda today.
Yeah.
Which
let's get to the thing that matters.
Yeah. So this isn't a news episode. We're just going to kind of work our way through our emotions and shout into the void. And
this is therapy.
Fix all of the problems for everyone.
For our listeners.
What we're going to do here today. Yeah. So if you haven't heard, Gran Turismo 7 is just a mess at the moment. We've talked on the show and outside of the show now for weeks about some of these things that kind of concerned us with Gran Turismo 7. And I know I have pulled some punches regarding it, trying to be a little positive and give the benefit of the doubt where one can. But really, this has all kind of come to a head here this past week. So if you haven't heard, Gran Turismo 7 was offline for roughly 30 hours last week. And you might think to yourself, well, I don't need to race with people online, so that's no big deal. And you would be wrong. You would be incorrect because, as was noted at launch, the majority, and when I say the majority, like pretty
90%,
much full stop,
98%
of this game, you cannot play this game offline. So everybody was unable to play it. I didn't find out till later in the day. That night, I think I tried to hop on and do some races, and I was like, what's going on? I can't get in this game. And come to find out, it had been offline all day. And the internet's kind of blown up. A lot of people are upset about this because now it's affecting them, right? This is a problem, but until it affects people in their daily lives, sometimes they don't see it. So yeah, people were unable to play Gran Turismo 7 for roughly 30 hours as they tried to push out a patch that had some sort of issue with it that was potentially corrupting save data. So it's good that they took it offline. Like, you got to
Yeah.
protect the save data. That's one of the worst things that could happen. But for a game, a newly released game that is predominantly single player, to be offline and unplayable for
Yeah.
over a
Week
day,
2 and within
yeah,
the first 2 weeks.
brutal. And then there's
Yeah.
another aspect to this, and we're going to kind of, I mean, I have several points here I want to get through and kind of just talk this out. But another aspect to this has been, and arguably the root cause of this entire problem, but another aspect to this problem has been the microtransactions within the game,
Mm.
which have been an ongoing discussion since launch, as they have changed from Gran Turismo Sport, which we'll talk about. But in this patch that took the game offline for 30 hours, they also made several adjustments to the rate at which you can earn currency within the game, throttling it. So really, just a nightmare of a PR
So
week for
it
Gran
was
Turismo
worth it that it
7.
was offline because they made it better, right? They improved
Exactly.
the economy, right? This is sarcasm.
Yep. Yes, that was sarcasm. Okay,
Yeah.
noted. So yeah, we're gonna dig into this. We've got some quotes from um, the powers that be and kind of what they were trying to do here. But I want to start things off with at the beginning. I want to go back to the beginning, Zach, and I want
Let's
to
in
talk
the
about
beginning.
in the beginning.
Maybe not that
Sony
far.
said
Yeah.
in the beginning, Sony said, PlayStation 5 is coming. We believe in generations, and these generations are going to cost you an extra $10 per game, by the way.
That's right.
And the whole world kind of went, ugh. Like, I don't know how I feel about that. But at the time, if you can put your mind back to what, 2020, I think this would have been.
Mm-hmm.
We were kind of assuming that this generation we'd see everyone take that leap. We were like, okay, it's time to pay the piper. It's going to be $70 for all of our games from here on out. And Sony's just kind of the first one to take the leap, right? Well, here we are, 2022, and there have been a few exceptions, but for the most part, Sony is the only company who is doing this. Elden Ring, we just talked about, has come out. One of, arguably, could be one of the biggest games of the entire generation when we're looking back on this, right? And how much did we pay for that game? We paid $60.
$60.
So
60 big ones
60 big ones or small ones
or little
comparatively, I
ones.
suppose.
Yeah.
And so for me personally, I looked at that $70 price hike for Sony games, and I said, you know what? If you're going to deliver me God of War 2018 experiences that are just off the charts, head and shoulders above everything else on the market in terms of quality, and also minus all of this complete nonsense that we see in all these games, these microtransactions, these season passes, get your wallet out here and there. If that's not in my game, gladly, I will pay an extra $10 for the Sony quality. Right, that's kind of what it felt like. And so here we are. Gran Turismo 7 comes out, and I think it's been a little bit lost um, in just the clown show of a conversation this has been, that this was a $70 game on PS5. You're paying that extra $10 for this game, Sony first party, and this game has microtransactions in it. Now, for me personally, and you can weigh in with your thoughts, full stop, a game that is full price should not have microtransactions in it. I think that's just unacceptable. Um, I think it's greedy. It's bad business practice. It's anti-consumer. Um, so I don't know. You can weigh in if you feel like there's a case to be made for any full price game to have microtransactions if it can be done well. Do you think?
I don't know. I mean, I hate to speak in complete extremities because maybe there's the occasional use case where it is done in a way that's acceptable, but I kind of hate to play that argument as well because I think it sets a precedent for what is almost almost always a really bad experience. I can't think of any experience where I've been like, you know what, I'm happy that those microtransactions. Like at best, it's you know what, I can tolerate this, and that's not a good consumer experience. That might be offset by other aspects of a good consumer experience. So from a practical or business standpoint, I think it's doable. But I think from a consumer standpoint, it's bad for players. It's not good. And I think the problem is that we're seeing this just happen frequently. Um, the industry is very much headed, not all developers are trying to do this like crazy, but a lot of the big ones are. Um, and I understand why, right? It's they want to maximize profits, and this is a way to do that. So, of course, they're going to try and walk the knife's edge of not pushing too many customers away while eking out an extra 10, 20, 50, $100 from people over the course of a game through microtransactions. And so I don't think it's good. I think it works a lot of the times, and that's kind of the problem. So not
Yeah.
thrilled. And I think for a full price game, I'm much more forgiving if the game is not full price. Like if it's free to play, that's that's kind of expected. Even if a game was half price, I still don't personally love that. I would rather pay more for the game and not have to worry about microtransactions. But um, at the very least, if they're going to be a part of your game, I don't want to be paying full price. And then I think beyond it being like, now there's the question of what truly is full price, like you were saying. So I don't want to pay $60 and have all these microtransactions. And now there's these premium Sony games that are $70. I especially don't
Yeah.
want those to have microtransactions. And just, yeah, between that and then being required to be always online, it's been really frustrating knowing like that that's what I paid for Gran Turismo, and my experience so far has been pretty marred by these things. So that's kind of where I'm at with it.
Yeah. And you kind of talked a little bit about it. $60 is one thing, and I still feel very strongly that microtransactions have no place in a $60 title. I think it could be done in a way that um, would minimally impact the experience. But the problem is we don't see that. Companies don't know where to stop. You give them an inch, they take a mile, right? As the old adage goes. And here we have the case of that. Not only are there microtransactions here in a $70 title, which I feel like we continue to need to emphasize, that extra $10, I feel should be kind of a sacred barrier for a more premium product where I don't have to deal with this nonsense. If
That
that's what you want to do,
$10 is
Sony.
a promise. It
Exactly.
is it
It
is
should
a
be.
pact. It
It
should
should
be.
be.
Yeah.
But not
A
only do
sacred
we,
bond.
yeah, not only do we have microtransactions in Gran Turismo 7, but there's been much talk about the kind of microtransactions
Mm-hmm.
and how they've worsened from Gran Turismo Sport, right? Sport was before Gran Turismo 7, largely an online experience of which I actually didn't partake because I prefer the single player aspect of Gran Turismo. That's what I grew up playing as a kid. I am very attached. I want to preface this whole conversation. I consider myself a Sony fan. Have been pretty much my whole life, and a Gran Turismo fan as well. The IP means a lot to me. It was one of my formative games as a child. But for me personally, when I think of fandom and where I put my money, I kind of have a higher bar for those things. I'm more critical of those things. I evaluate those things. So, anyways, Gran Turismo Sport had microtransactions in it, and in Sport you could purchase various vehicles for um, a, a set rate or actual currency. You could turn $1 into a car, $5 into, I think the most expensive cars in the game were about $5. And whether or not people loved that or tolerated it, it was widely tolerated. And here in GT7, we've seen a complete change in the microtransaction model here, and it is very clearly um, going the route of being more manipulative and greedy. These cars, it's been noted in many news articles I've been reading here that now the most expensive car in Sport was $5 and you can buy it outright. Now in Gran Turismo 7, not only are the prices of these cars fluctuating, which we'll talk about as well in a little bit, but some of the most expensive cars in the game can now cost you $40 and upward because they have introduced a currency. And now you have to, like many games, purchase the currency and then purchase the car. And we've talked about the mechanics people use and how this is manipulative because let's say I want to purchase a car that's 1,000,000 credits. There is no 1,000,000 credit purchase option. So I either have to go up to $20 to buy 2 million credits, so they've now got me to spend double, or I have to piecemeal my way up to 1 million credits, which in the end would cost me $15. So it's very manipulative the way it's been done. It's exorbitantly priced compared to Gran Turismo Sport. There's been a lot of backlash about this, and what's of note is that this patch here um, goes out of its way to nerf the credits that you get from some of the races people were using most in order to grind out credits in game to purchase these cars. Anywhere from 30 to 50%, they've knocked these credits down. Let's say you were getting 80,000 credits to finish this race. Now maybe it's 50,000 or 45,000 or even less. And so, I mean, the community's upset about it, and it's such a bad look. I mean, it just clearly shows where your priorities lie. And from there, I kind of want to get into this quote here. I don't know if you've heard this yet, Zach. Kazunori Yamauchi, he came out with a quote about Gran Turismo 7 and kind of their vision and what happened with the patch. And I want to go through this. I'm trying to figure out if I want to do it all at once or in part. But let's go ahead and let's start at the beginning here. He says, in GT7, I would like to have users enjoy lots of cars and races, even without microtransactions, he claimed. Now, I've stopped there in the first sentence. Why do you have to say that? Why do you even have to say even without microtransactions? Like it just kind of already shows the state of the game.
I sense a but coming up in this sentence. You know, it's one of those things where it's like, look, I'm not a racist, but you know, it's like, okay, well, but, you just stop right there.
You shouldn't have a but at the end of that sentence.
Yeah, this sentence is already indicating it. Also, just even from the outset, I want everyone to experience a ton of races and cars without microtransactions. Do you really? Why are there microtransactions then? Like that's just antithetical to what you've chosen. Yeah.
There's a lot of I would say garbage in these statements, but he goes on to say right after that, he says, at the same time, which is a but, right?
But
the pricing of cars is an important element that conveys their value and rarity. So I do think it's important for it to be linked with the real world prices. End quote. I think that is such bull crap.
In order for these cars to be valuable, most of our players should not be able to get them. That way you truly experience what it's like to not be able to afford luxurious cars.
Yeah, because we all fantasize. We all hop into Gran Turismo 7 and fantasize about not being able to afford the cars we already can't afford in real life, right?
Don't you hate it how in real life it's so easy to get a Lambo, so easy to get all your favorite $1 billion or $1 million cars, but in this we want it to be a challenge. So that makes sense.
It's absolutely ridiculous. So I mean, it's the real driving simulator. It's not the real economy simulator. Like these two quotes here are so contradictory. We want users to enjoy lots of cars and races without microtransactions. At the same time, we want these cars to be so expensive it conveys how rare and valuable they are. It doesn't make any sense.
We do want some microtransactions.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's just ridiculous. That's not why we play video games. We hop into these games so that we can do some races and purchase these really cool cars we can't have in real
Levi,
life,
do you know why I play video games?
Please tell me.
Because of the economy. You know?
The economy.
Supply, demand.
The worse, the better.
Constraints, value of the dollar. That is why I have a PlayStation 5.
I want to see my microtransactions become more egregious as COVID and things like this happen in the world. You know, different wars break out. I want to see my video game prices go way up to match the horrible things that we see happening in the real world. So
yeah, absolutely.
Great to see that. Anyways, moving on. He says, I want to make GT7 a game in which you can enjoy a variety of cars lots of different ways. And if possible, would like to try to avoid a situation where a player must mechanically keep replaying certain events over and over again. End quote. This is such bull crap because let me start here. This is a racing game. The core concept of this game is to mechanically do the same content over and over again and win races and win credits and turn those credits into cars. Like the core concept of your game is antithetical to what you just said. Also, if you would like to try and avoid a situation where players must mechanically keep replaying certain events over and over again, how is making them get less credits from these races helpful?
It's like
All you're do-
gaslighting. Yeah.
all you're clearly doing is driving people to open your wallet. You haven't fixed the issue. You fixed what you perceive to be the problem to you getting more money.
Well, they're trying to make it sound like they've solved a problem through microtransactions, when in reality, they've made a decision that's poor for player enjoyment, poor for the consumer,
Exactly.
so that they can enable microtransactions. Like, it's stupid because it's like, oh, we don't want you to replay these courses over and over and over because you'll get bored. Then increase the amount of credits I get per race. No, no, no. We need microtransactions so
Yeah.
that so that you don't get bored. It's just a stupid argument because they're saying that the only solution is that you pull out your wallet, and that's obviously not the only solution. That is the intended design. That's not even like a solution to the problem. They created the problem by
Yeah.
necessitating the solution.
Which is really what microtransactions were born of. We've been dealing with
Yeah.
this for over a decade now. They introduce a problem, they solve it with microtransactions. Ubisoft has been dragged through the mud for this too. They make the XP grind so much, and then they sell you XP boosts. Oh, here's a solution for those of you who don't want to grind that much. And I meant to say this at the
Busy
outset of
working
the
professional,
conversation
you
because
got
this really,
kids. We're here to help you.
yeah, no time for video games. Pay us to bypass video games.
Yeah, that's
But I meant to say this at the outset of the video because this really grinds my gears. If you're one of those people who says, "Hey, I have an internet connection. I'm always online. I don't care if I'm required to be online to play my game. It doesn't affect me." You are objectively wrong. And we've seen that here with this patch that went down for 30 hours. You don't have control over their servers. You don't have control of when they end the game, the end of life. If you're one of those people who says, hey, microtransactions are optional, they don't affect you if you just don't partake in them, you are objectively wrong. And we are seeing it here because these companies, they don't just add in microtransactions on top of their complete game. They clearly, we're seeing it here, they clearly are building their game around these microtransactions. Would they have any reason to go in and nerf the amount of credits you get per race if there were no microtransactions in this game? Absolutely not. And so I said it before this game came out. I was worried about it, and it's all coming to fruition. Um, Microtransactions inherently change the fundamental structure under which a game is built. And whether or not you notice it, and we hoped we wouldn't notice it in Gran Turismo 7, we had this
yeah.
conversation just a couple weeks ago. It's clearly being noticed by the community at large. People are not happy about this, and so yeah, it affects you, and we need to keep this in mind. Let's say you don't even play Gran Turismo, this still matters to you because the gaming industry as a whole is continuing to go down this road.
Yeah.
We have to do what we can to stop it, but also Sony. If you're a fan of Sony titles from the past 5, even 10 years, and you constantly hype up, oh, how good Sony titles are and how quality they are, and how there's no BS in these games where they're constantly trying to get you to take out your wallet. Well, here we are. This is kind of um, the first live service game we're seeing under their new direction that they made known a couple months ago, where they plan to have 10 live service games over the next like 5 years, 2 a year. And if this is any indication of what Sony is willing to do or the direction they're going, like we need to voice up and try and put a stop to this, because that quality we love so much, it could be gone over the next few years. And I don't know if this is. It's hard to say where the blame truly lies. Is this Polyphony? Is this Sony? Who's making these decisions? It's kind of hard to say, but at the end of the day, it's on both of them, and the buck stops at Sony. The reputation stops at Sony. Um, this really looks bad for the brand as a whole right now.
Yeah.
So, anyways, there's my spiel. This affects anyone who cares about video games at all, whether or
Yeah.
not, oh, I have an internet connection. Oh, go ahead.
I mean, I was kind of I don't think they're good, and I wasn't excusing them, but I was more mildly annoyed when it was first announced that GT7 was going to be to require you to be online for the majority of even the single player experience. And it was annoying because it was so obviously unnecessary. I mean, well, it is in their eyes, I guess it is necessary, but it's so obviously not helpful for players. But I thought, you know what? I have an internet connection. I'm not playing this somewhere where my internet's going in and out, so it shouldn't be the end of the world. Um, and what's funny is within my first week of playing this game, two times I got booted in the middle of a really hard, like trying to get a trophy in a specific license test. Um, Twice, and it was infuriating. So I've struggled to play this game because I keep getting booted out or coming back to it and it's not available. And granted, like they're having other issues, but because of how they've structured the game, we can't play it when they take the game down because it's an online game. And the whole reason they structured it this way, despite what they've said about, oh, it's because of cheating. No, it's not. They've done this
It
because
is.
they
It is. But what kind of cheating?
cheating is in like getting around microtransactions, I guess.
Exactly.
That's what I mean.
Yep.
Is it's not a it's they've sold us this
Not for
story
the
about
player.
it's to prevent cheating from harming you, but it's not. It's to prevent them from not being able to maximize their
Yeah.
sales of microtransactions. And that's the problem. And that's where we get to, have I bought any microtransactions with this game? No, I don't plan to. But now, not only is the economy, and we'll talk more about the economy and the changes they made in a bit as well, but even just practically, I've tried to play this game multiple times where I've been kicked off right at the end of a thing that has been taking me like half an hour plus, that I was about to get a gold trophy on. And I haven't even, like, it's happened to me twice in the same test thing. And then I've logged on once since then as well, and it was down. And it's like, and it wasn't my internet because I checked. So it's not acceptable. And it absolutely has negatively changed the fundamental game.
Yeah. And there's an article by GT Planet, um, which is clearly a Gran Turismo based site. I mean, this is not just the minority here crying out in backlash. This is a big deal. But they go on to break down all of the races that were nerfed in their credits, and how long it takes you to earn the most expensive car in the game. And it is, I'd have to find it. I read it a while back, so I don't have it off the top of my head, but it's nearly 20 hours. Nearly 20 hours to earn enough credits for one car in the game. Granted, the most expensive, but it is the worst bang for your, not buck, but time, right? Bang for your time, new phrase. In any of the Gran Turismo games, if you take into account when they were live, when they were actually like modern, because some of them have since no longer have live events and things like that, or daily login bonuses. But clearly something's off here. This whole thing is built around getting you to pull out your wallet if you want the cars. And as someone who loved especially the first three Gran Turismos, put a lot of hours into them as a kid. I love that I can still put it in the PlayStation 2 and play, and earn all those cars. Um, this is just not the Gran Turismo 7 I wanted or that I was hoping for. And the worst part is that all this could be fixed with the flip of a couple switches. Like, genuinely, this game is great. The gameplay is fun. When I'm playing this game, I enjoy it. Um, it's similar to how I've come to feel about Destiny. Is the game fun to play? Is it mechanically sound? Is it mechanically maybe the best in its genre? Absolutely. But does that justify everything else going on regarding pricing or microtransactions or things like that? No. And that's kind of where um, I'm landing here. And I'll round out his quote because he has a little bit more to say. He says, "We will in time let you know the update plans for additional content, additional race events, and additional features that will constructively resolve this. It pains me that I can't explain the details regarding this at the moment, but we plan on continuing to revise GT7 so that as many players as possible can enjoy the game. We would really appreciate it if everyone could watch over the growth of Gran Turismo 7 from a somewhat longer term point of view." End quote.
Okay, blame the customer. Like, we'd appreciate it if you would get in line and just suck up what we're doing here. This is actually your fault, not ours.
Yeah, I don't know what this means. I assume they plan to have events in the game that will give out bigger payouts or whatever. But at the end of the day,
But you
The
can't just
core issue, no,
break the game through microtransactions and make it unplayable or really frustrating to play. And then when customers complain, say, guys, I really wish you'd take a longer term. Like this, I'm sorry, this isn't like my education or like a marriage. Like
yeah, I
this is a
agree.
product I
Well, and
bought.
that's what I was gonna say is that this whole paragraph here, he's like trying to play on sympathy. He's saying I can't explain the details. It pains me. I don't know. Whatever they do in the coming updates with Gran Turismo 7, um it needs to be a metric shift in
Yeah.
how this game is run, because little tweaks here and there, adding events where you get more money, that doesn't fix the problem.
Yeah.
In my
Also, why
opinion, the
can't you
game is still
explain it?
structured incorrectly. Why
Yeah.
can't you explain? I don't
Yeah.
know. Is Sony forcing them to change their microtransactions? We don't know the details. If that's what he's referring to, it would be kind of weird. Again, this whole paragraph is very ambiguous, and all I know is whatever they plan to do, it better be a big change, because this looks bad for Sony.
Yeah.
For me personally, this has severely once again damaged my reputation with polyphony. I don't even know at this point, if they don't correct this, that I would even look forward to the next Gran Turismo installment. And then he wraps up there with, we appreciate everyone, if everyone would watch over the growth of Gran Turismo 7 from a somewhat longer term point of view. I'm sorry, but no. Like, no. This isn't a this isn't a long-term relationship
Yeah.
I've gone into. I purchased a product at launch that I and most people intend to play solo, and
Yeah.
you're asking me to wait over the course of months or possibly years for you to continue to refine this experience that I didn't ask for. So
Yeah.
no.
They're talking to the customers like we're investors or something. Like
Yeah,
it's not the customer's responsibility to look at a product with a long-term view. It's the job of a good business and their investors and so forth to look at their business and their relationships with their customers. And I think if they were looking at this from a long-term view that was like customer focused, they would not be making the decisions they're making. So they're offloading the responsibility here on customers, which I think is just it's gaslighty and stupid, and not being able to explain why this is going to be a good thing. Like if you really are working to fix, or if you have reasons why this will be good for consumers, why can't you even give a, like, you could say we have some really cool events that are going to give you more of these things, or you could say some still relatively vague things that indicate the direction, but all they say is I can't explain why. But it's really your responsibility, players, to make sure the growth of this game is good. I'm sorry, but it's not my job, your job, any player's job to make sure that the game growth goes well. That's just ridiculous.
absolutely. Yeah, and this has really taken the joy out for me. I've put the game down for now. I would go refund the game if I were able to, because this is just it's been a brutal month. We've gone through the games and the poor releases, and here we thought, oh, Gran Turismo 7, this is the best launch, and it's like, man, this is a catastrophe just a few weeks after. And so another thing I want to point out before we wrap this up, another industry norm, an industry-wide practice that has got to be resolved legally somehow. Um, Gran Turismo 7 had no microtransactions in it during the review process, and this is something we have seen
Mm-hmm.
time and time again. This is an industry standard at this point for companies, and it is so unbelievably, um, it's just not in good faith. Like, it's crazy to me, and maybe we'll break this down a little bit too. We'll talk about DRM with the offline mode and everything, digital rights management. Companies that make video games have like zero responsibility for their product. It says it in the terms that you sign every time you buy a video game, or log into a video game. I mean, they can change the game whenever they want, however they want. The way it's worded, they could change Gran Turismo 7 to a pinball game, and technically they're okay to do that. Now there would be some good faith arguments, and I'm sure they could be taken to court for it, but like, I mean, they have the wording to do whatever they want with these
Yeah.
products, and it's like, we need some more consumer protection here, because the fact that these companies wait till they get their 89 Metacritic, all these great reviews, and then put in these microtransactions for the entire world to find day one is just so um it's so unjust. Like, I can't think of a
Yeah.
better word. It's so corrupt. Um and that
Yeah.
was the case here.
corrupt, duplicitous. Like it,
Yeah.
they know that this is going to be a major pain point for consumers. They know reviewers will be looking for some of these things because reviewers, their audience looks to them for some level of accuracy, and the more they're off, the more people stop listening to their reviews. And so if they're reviewing this with this knowledge, they're gonna most, I think, reviewers would talk about, hey, it seems like the economy's not dialed super well. I was gaining credit super slow, and based on the prices XYZ, but they didn't have access to the microtransactions. So like, how can you take a game that has like a key part of its architecture missing, and then people be like, oh, this is incredible, 9 out of 10, and then you release this later, and it's like, oh, actually we're not only did you not know what the prices are going to be, we're also going to dial back the rewards you get from races. We're going to take away some of the other key outlets you had to earn additional credits as well. We could talk about like selling cars as well, but like they
Oh yeah, I meant
make
to
all these
bring that up.
changes. Yeah.
That's another thing where it's just like, how obvious can you be at what you're trying to do? You know, we try to give you the benefit of the doubt for a while, but like the fact that you cannot sell used cars in this game, which has been part of Gran Turismo since the dawn of time, is so, it's so egregiously obvious. The only reason you would do that is because you are trying to stifle the amount of credits people can get.
Mm-hmm.
If I get a duplicate car in Gran Turismo 7, I got a waste of a reward. I can't even turn it into credits to go buy another car because there's a microtransaction store.
Well,
That's
it
a.
flies
I'm
it
glad you
flies
mentioned
in
that.
the face. It flies in the face of them saying, we want cars to reflect real world prices because it's more immersive.
But
We
you
want
can't
you
sell
to
the ones you have sitting in your garage.
we want you to struggle with scarcity because getting an expensive car, that should be hard, and it should reflect real world prices. And the fact that it takes you so long to grind for it, or that you have to spend more money, is immersive, and you should like that. But yeah, you can't sell that car if you don't like it, or if you get a duplicate like that. It
It's
just, that's not immersive, that's not realistic. Like,
yeah,
so it's just it's obvious that that's not what they care about. What they care about is making money, as much money as possible, off of their players with microtransactions, and they're trying to find ways to justify it.
yeah, yeah, and it's become incredibly clear here this past week, especially. And what's crazy to me is just how bad this is. I mean, um, this is just the worst execution. If Sony or Polyphony, whoever, were trying to kind of test the waters, this execution was so blatant and poorly done. It's just one of the worst examples we've honestly seen in the past few years regarding everything that happened here.
Yeah.
So before we wrap this up, I want to talk a little bit about the offline situation. What's interesting to note in the product description for Gran Turismo 7, if you go to the PSN, it mentions online cooperative play, and then it says online optional. So that's interesting. Interesting to note. And then farther down, it
Well, yeah, because you could
mentions,
mess around in the settings if you don't have an internet connection. You can look at the intro
yeah,
screen.
yeah, right. So farther down in the description of the game as well, it goes on to talk about, there's like a little asterisk, and in that asterisk it says PSN network required to play with others or whatever. But the whole way it's worded in no way conveys properly to someone who's not paying attention to NeverLag or whoever you might be watching out there, right? It does not convey the fact that if our servers go down, you will not be able to play this game. 98%, the campaign, the cafe, the license center, all of it is unavailable. So I really do wonder. I feel like Sony did a bad job of protecting themselves here. I wonder if we will see any sort of lawsuit. Probably won't go anywhere, but my sincere hope is that whatever, um, sorry, I'm forgetting his last name, Yamauchi, whatever they intend to do here, I hope it's a big shift. I don't have confidence it will be, and I also hope that this whole situation has kind of opened people's eyes enough to the issues that come with a single player game, predominantly single player game, being online all the time, or these microtransactions that you may not be partaking in. These are big deals, and I hope this makes enough noise that we see a philosophical shift for Sony going forward. I'm terrified that this is
I
kind of
wouldn't
what
hold
they
your
intend to
breath.
do with their games moving forward.
I mean, if you look at
I
their
know.
strategy with acquiring Bungie and their talk of 10 live service games, I wouldn't expect a deep philosophical shift. The reason they're interested in microtransactions is because they're interested in additional uh, means of monetizing their audience, like, or you could read that as exploiting their audience. Like that's why they're interested in it. It's not a consumer facing decision, and they have multiple other games planned. What I'm at least kind of hopeful for is that there's enough backlash to what they're doing with Gran Turismo that they work on the balancing a little more. But we talked about the core issue being that microtransactions can fundamentally change an entire game. I don't think that's going away, at least for, I don't think they're going to make all of their games have microtransactions, at least, but it does seem to be one of the pillars of their strategy over the next half decade. So
Yeah. Well,
not happy about that.
what's funny about this whole thing is that back when the Xbox Series X, no, that's the new one. Xbox, they have such
Xbox
weird
One.
names, man. Xbox One. Back when that, I think it was when that launched. Remember the whole PR nightmare that was the DRM issues that Xbox were having when they were talking about everything online all the time, and there was such an enormous backlash. Granted, this was like 2013. The online landscape has changed a lot in 10 years or so.
Yeah.
But Sony then came out and dunked on Xbox, and there's that whole meme of them showing how you share games. I don't know if you remember that, but they have a little video where they're like, "This is how you share games on PlayStation," and he's holding a physical copy and he like hands it to his friend, and they were just clowning on Xbox.
This is how you share your games on PS4. Thanks.
And here we are. This is exactly what Xbox intended to do. We're seeing here with Gran Turismo 7, and it is such a big problem because we talked a lot about the microtransactions themselves, and at the core, that is the fundamental issue. But a symptom of that issue is this continued DRM, digital rights management, having things always online, you not having control over your license to a product, right? I just mentioned I can go put my Gran Turismo 3 disc in my console and play it 20 years later, 15 years later. I don't remember when that came out. Almost 20 years later.
Almost 20 years.
It plays exactly as it did back then. And that's not the case with these games. I mean, we saw it with their servers go offline. You say, I always have internet. Well, are their servers always online?
Well,
Regardless, regardless of the 30 hours that it was down for this patch, you have encountered it multiple times where their scheduled maintenance took you offline from playing. And it's just like, who wants a single player game? Who wants to be playing God of War 2022 Ragnarok and you're halfway through a boss and it kicks you out and says, sorry, server maintenance. Like, this is the world that we're headed towards if we don't find some way to stop it. And so it's a big problem. I hope that we don't see, man, if single player games, if it becomes the norm for them to be online like this, that's going to be a major bummer for me when it comes to video games.
Imagine it will be unless it's a game that is really intent upon a strong microtransaction type economy.
Oh yeah, clearly.
The game, which I think there's a lot of companies that want to abuse this, but I don't think every company is trying to put this in every game. And I hope that doesn't change. I don't think it will. I think there's still enough appetite for games like God of War and others where I don't know how much an economy even makes sense. Like, I feel like someone like Ubisoft or EA will be the one to try and continue meddling in that, and it'll work to varying degrees. But I think we'll still have some experiences that are somewhat protected. But it doesn't mean I want this to happen for half the games I play. So
yeah, it's no fun, no joy, and everything we talked about, like I said, the core problem, the what's the opposite of a symptom? The cause. I don't have a better word for you. Sorry. Is microtransactions, right? If they took microtransactions out of Gran Turismo 7, then the DRM issues go away, right? What reason do they have to have it always online if there's no microtransactions? The answer is none. They have no reason at that point because all they're doing is protecting themselves from people manipulating the game to get more currency.
Yeah. If anything,
if
they would have an incentive to remove the online requirement, because that negatively impacts people's experiences, which means the longer tail of sales is going to fall off a lot more. But it's a trade-off they're willing to
also
make.
server maintenance.
And server maintenance, it's a trade-off they're willing to make, because they're banking on, large spenders, whales, people who pay hundreds to thousands of dollars on microtransactions through the life,
Right.
through their customer life cycle. So yeah, if anything, it would actually, they would want to resolve it otherwise.
Yeah. So the point is, microtransactions affect you whether you think they do or not. If microtransactions were out of this game, you'd have an offline experience where you could play the campaign. You'd be able to get the licenses. You should be able to do everything short of play with someone online offline, right? That goes without saying. It's the dumbest sentence I've ever had to say. And then also, they wouldn't have to balance how many credits you get per race, right? They wouldn't be constantly trying to tune that just to make sure it's low enough that you might spend some money. So, and then obviously the microtransactions would be gone. The store would be gone. The game would be better. What an awful week it's been for Gran Turismo 7. I hope they're able to do something about it, but I'm not hopeful, we'll say. So we'll see where this goes. It concerns me. It really does concern me as someone who has enjoyed Sony's IPs and the quality of their products. This has been a rough month for me personally. I know a lot of people enjoyed Horizon, but the performance mode is still broken. It's still not ready to play. And here we are with Gran Turismo 7, this mess. It's just been kind of a bad month in my eyes for Sony here. Yeah. And
you had to buy Elden Ring twice.
I had to buy it. It's been a real journey here, so I'm feeling real bruised. Yeah. So and one last thing. I love the gameplay of Gran Turismo 7, but I have to say, I saw someone mentioning this in a review, and I was like, that's interesting. What is with these rolling starts where you start in 16th place? Like, I kid you not, you will start these campaign races in 16th place, everyone going full speed. That means first place has already taken the first 2 turns. And so you literally spend 3 laps trying to catch up to first place. It's not a race, it's a chase. I cannot understand who made this design decision. I don't know if there's a name for this in the world of racing. I don't know if there's a reason. Does this happen in real life? All I remember from the old games is you would start staggered, stopped, right? Which means first place was still ahead of you, but only by like 100 feet, not like a couple miles. So I have found that very irritating the farther I've gotten, because sometimes the best car you have for a specific race is not that great, and you legitimately spend all 3 laps just trying to catch up to third place, and it's just not a fun racing experience. Like, I don't play a racing game to chase a line of cars, anything
to slow down your credit accrual and to more incentivize you to pay for better cars.
There you go. They want me to get third place because it's less credits. We figured it out.
And then to go look in the store and say, here's a car that fits this type of track, and if I just buy one more pack of credits, this one is 750 pp, and I'm pretty sure I can beat this one.
There you go. You've reached the appropriate level of cynicism. I am proud of you. Very proud of you, Zach. So there's my speech. Obviously I'm very passionate about this. This has been frustrating. I mean, these are games that I love, and they're being ruined, quite frankly. So that's my Gran Turismo 7 talk and everything that's going on. And let's move on to something better. Do you have anything better? What have you been playing? You said you played Elden Ring for 20 minutes.
I played Elden Ring for 20 minutes last night, Sunday night, work the next morning. And, it's like, I should go to bed. Next thing I know, I'm gallivanting across the lands between. And it's great. It looks a lot better on my PC than on PS5. I'm trying to catch up because I got about 10 hours in on PS5. So I'm trying to catch up to where I was at and then continue. But it's great. I mean, with the performance, the graphical fidelity looks a lot better. I have a high-end PC, so I'm able to max everything out. And it feels much closer to next gen, I will say. Still have occasional frame drops that cause kind of the choppiness. It's not frequent enough that it ruins it, but it is there. But it's great, man. Elden Ring is so much fun. As frustrating as everything has been with, multiple launches with tons of performance issues, Horizon, Elden Ring, even issues with Gran Turismo. It is nice to at least have an incredible game to play that doesn't have monetization factored into it, that is, aside from the technical issues, they put so much into that game for $60. There's so much to do. It's not just scope. It's not like a shallow ocean. There's a lot of depth, and you can just stumble across so much. Like, I'm replaying the starting area, West Limgrave, and there are things I'm finding. And this is like my third time through the starting area, because I tried 2 different characters on PS5. This is like my third time through, and I'm still finding things I didn't find last time. It's just delightful. So that is the type of thing that gives me hope for video games. So
Yeah.
What about you? What are you playing?
Yeah, I too have finally ventured into the lands between, and it has been fantastic. If you say it's closer to next gen, if by that you mean it feels like I'm playing a PS4 game that has released instead of a PS4 game that was in beta, I would agree with you. It still doesn't feel next gen at all, but at least I'm hitting mostly 60 frames. As I ventured outside of Limgrave, there are areas where I'm getting a lot of choppy stutter, dropping frames. Frustrating on a high-end PC, especially when the game, quite frankly, doesn't. I mean, it's beautiful, and you can kind of get lost in the art style of this game, but technically, it still is not looking that great. But anyways, not to harp on that. The game is
pull
fantastic.
you back from the brink.
Yeah. So no, it's amazing. The scope, everyone's talked about this, the scope and scale of this world, and I just love, more than anything, I love that they created this massive world. Here's one thing I love that the map is not shown to you at full scale at the beginning of the game. It's one of those little things, but when you open a map in most games, you immediately know, okay, this is the extent of my journey here. This is how large the game is. And so from then on, it's always in the back of your brain, oh, I'm getting to the end of the map. I'm getting to the end of the map, or whatever. This game, when you first open up your map, let's say you have to find the map in game for starters. And then it'll kind of show a topographical, is that the term? Sort of in detail. It's an old timey style map, but like it'll show you your map, and it's this big, and you're like, oh, okay. And then you'll find another map, and then it kind of like it'll zoom out. And what's interesting is the map itself on your screen is not getting bigger. You're able to zoom out farther. And so you really have no idea. You have no concept of how big this map can get. I'm over 20 hours in at this point. I'm still finding areas that are making the map larger. I don't think I'm anywhere near the edges of this map. And every time I find a new map, it zooms farther out, and you're like, good grief, it just keeps going, which is what everyone has said. Yeah. Now I'm saying it.
But it's nice to experience it.
It really is, because you get into it, and I don't know, I got through the first castle, the first main kind of story boss situation, Stormvale Castle. And I don't know, you just kind of think, okay, the game's big, I get it. Like, how big though? I kind of feel like I have a sense of this world. There looks like there's a region over there, maybe a region over there. But as I continue going, you really start to be like, okay, people aren't kidding. This really does just keep going. Like, I don't know how they made this, even if it took them 5 years. I don't really know how they were able to create such a vast world. I love the fact that I want more games to do this. Make a world that has all these systems and secrets and things going on, and then just put me in the world. I love that I can just sit there in silence and hear the wind or the creatures or enemies in the distance, and Aloy's not telling me to go find her secret stash, right? Like, I can't stand that. It's such a pet peeve of mine, and I love that you get to just
probably exist. Should check that cave.
Exactly.
Nope, that's not the right direction. Better go back and check that cave.
Yeah, I think it's to the left.
I think my secret stash might be in this cave.
Your other left. Go this way. Like, I don't know. I just
let me just take over the controller for you. Okay.
we're on our way. We're on our way there. So, I love that this game just lets you exist in the world, and it gives you enough breadcrumbs to find interesting things if you're looking. and it just expects you to look, and the world
Yeah.
is interesting enough that you want to look. And I think a lot of this goes back to we talk a lot about hand holding in video games and map markers, and developers don't want you to miss things they spent time on, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think a lot of this, the core problem, I think a lot of it goes back to insecurity as a development team. I think if you're insecure in your product, you feel the need to make sure that you help your customers along what you think is the best experience, or make sure that they see this thing you spent time on. Whereas if you're really secure in this world that you built, in the quality of the content, you can just set a player free and be like, go figure out how great this game is, you know?
Yeah. I think there's a balance, because I think they do a good job of like giving you some of those breadcrumbs. So I think it's the tough thing is it does take some amount of work of like, what do we want to lead them to? At what points do we drop these hints? How do we help clue them in with certain things? But overall, I agree. I think it's counterintuitive for developers in general, and they're really good at just letting you roam the world. And it seems like they're confident enough in the overall game that it's like, we don't care if you don't find whatever. You'll find something and you'll like it. And it adds to the mystique of the game. It adds to the replayability. I do think they do a good job of hinting at some things and dropping certain things in certain locations, but for the most part, they pretty much just drop you in the world. And yeah, like you said, I think
It's
that's
just enough direction that you never feel like, at least personally, I mean, everyone could have their own experience, but I think they do a good enough job that you'll never feel like you need to put the game down because you just don't know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
If you truly are that lost, there is some direction to be found. You know, whether it's a guidance from one of the Grace sites, or another thing I've really been enjoying. FromSoft are known for having incredibly ambiguous NPCs and quest lines, where they just kind of mumble nonsense and then giggle at you and then disappear, and you're like, what was that? No idea. And then you go watch a video, you know. But in this game, I've actually really enjoyed the NPCs that you meet.
Mm-hmm.
You meet a lot of them, and they still have that FromSoft charm to them. They're not a Ubisoft quest giver. They're not laying it out for you and putting a map marker on your map, right? But they're much clearer. Like you say, oh, I met this guy, I understand what his deal is. He said coherent things, I understand, and he wants me to do this if I want to. He wants me to go to this western coast area and find this creature or this castle.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go there, you do the thing, you either come back to him or you meet him there. I've really enjoyed, I feel like the NPC quest lines have been much more engaging and simplified just enough that they can actually be enjoyed.
Yeah. It's not ambiguous to the point of like, oh, a tarnished in the land who goes to the door, and then from the door whence he came. You're like, I don't even know what to make of that. It's not like that.
And then you just kill him.
I mean, there might be a couple of people like that, but you just kill him. But, I think one of my favorite examples is someone who's like, could you go to this castle and do this thing for me? It's like you said, it's at the southern coast or the western coast or whatever. And he gives you vague directions, tells you to look for a castle, do a thing, and come back to him. There's no markers. There's nothing. No quest log. And it feels like in real life, if some random guy was like, could you go to my castle? And you're like,
I don't know, I'm kind of busy. Maybe later, I guess.
So I get to a castle. I'm like, I'm pretty sure this is it. And then you do the thing and you go back to him, and then you have another interaction. But it's like, when I got back to him, I'm like, I don't know if it didn't really trigger anything, but then you talk to him and sure enough, like I've done kind of the thing he was asking.
He's like, hey, thanks for doing that thing.
Progresses your conversation with him. And I'm really enjoying that because it's so much more immersive than, the 5 or 6 hours I put into Forbidden West, I thoroughly enjoyed. And aside from the technical stuff, to again, not harp on that, feels like it's a pretty great game, even though it's much more the legacy style hand-holdy open world. But there is still a difference of someone being like, hey, could you kill 6 thistlebores and bring me their pelts? I put it on your map, and you're like, all right, yeah, it feels like a video game. Like I've done this a million times, and there's things like Horizon does really well that makes it a very fun experience overall. But with this, there's something just so engrossing about being like, running through a forest, running from this, giant monster fantasy bears, trying to find a castle based on the instructions of some weirdo
near the coast or near, yeah,
some weirdo I met who was not super clear, but gave me enough that as an average person, you can piece it together. And it doesn't require you to be Batman decoding the Riddler's,
right.
code.
It's called immersion. It's called immersion. And yeah, so many games take that immersion from you. I've heard some people kind of joking facetiously when people mention, oh, you have to remember it or write it down in a journal, and people will facetiously comment back, oh, you mean like a quest log? And as funny as that is, as good of a one liner as that might be, there is such a difference between a game automating. I think we've gotten to a point where games automate too many processes for the sake of convenience. There is a tipping point between convenience and immersion.
Yeah.
And I'd honestly, I'm the type where I would prefer that games err on the side of immersion rather than convenience. I don't mind in Red Dead Redemption 2 how he gets down and skins the animal and stuff. People are like, this is taking forever.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's a balance to be had, but I do think too many games automate too many things, and I like.
Can't you just complete the game for me and give me the trophy?
Yeah,
Gosh,
yeah. auto steer my character, but
turn on the game.
I like the thought
give me platinum. Done.
Yeah, I haven't been keeping a journal, and I kind of am like, maybe I should have, because I now have enough people that I've met and want different things. I'm having a hard time remembering, but I kind of enjoy having to try and remember. And then I find them, I'm like, oh yeah, that's what you wanted me to do. It's like a real world thing. Anyways, I love it. Just to wrap up what I've been loving. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, it kind of reminds me of like in the real world, technology automating away things that kind of make life more convenient, but not necessarily more enjoyable. Like I remember back in the day when you were
make
going
us
on
human.
Make us human. When you'd go on road trips, like we're just old enough to remember the days before GPS was really a thing. And when I first started driving, I didn't have a cell phone. Like MapQuest was a thing, but it was a thing you used once or twice a year for very specific things. So I remember half the time I was going somewhere, I would learn things by landmarks, by sight. And life was kind of an immersive experience back then. Maybe it was my age. So I don't know.
That's a really
life felt more immersive. And there are so many places I remember driving around as a teenager in the various states that I lived in, because I specifically remember when I first moved to Cincinnati, Ohio, I went on a trip with some friends an hour away to some small town in the middle of the nowhere. And we got lost in this small college town at night in the middle of the forest. And I didn't really have a map. And it was one of the most memorable things. We stumbled across
trying to find a side of grace.
Exactly. We actually stumbled across this creepy old church at night, and it was like, it looked like a haunted thing. And we stopped there because we were looking around for like trying to get our bearings, and we were like, let's get out of here. This is terrifying. But it's one of those things where it was a memorable and fun experience. And I'm not saying that I don't want to have the certain conveniences in every aspect of life, but I have noticed that trade-off, because now everywhere I drive, I just can look where it is. And I've noticed I'm not very present with a lot of things like directions and where I'm going. And I think in video games, we're automating away many things that take that out of that. But with video games, we're not just trying to get to the destination. Like we're starting to lose sight of what video games are for. And that is to put you somewhere else, to let you be someone else, and just enjoy this completely made up place.
No, I think that is an incredibly excellent analogy, because think about it. GPS is fantastic, but how many times have you GPSed to a location and you have no idea how to get there still? Maybe you have used GPS to get somewhere a dozen times or more, and you could not get there without GPS because you're not being engaged. Your brain isn't in it.
Your brain doesn't have to do anything.
It doesn't have to do anything. There's no memory associated with it. And I think that's very similar with a lot of games. How many games automate so many processes that by the time you get done with it, you have no memorable experience with that game.
Yeah,
it all just kind of blurs into the background. You don't
remember the quests. You just your brain in the moment feels satisfied ticking off the boxes so that you feel like I've made progress.
Just like
I've been ignoring my work.
Exactly.
But
just like in real life, if in these games you get lost and you have this random adventure you didn't mean to have, those are the memorable things that stick in your brain. And so many games automate that away. So I've really been enjoying it. I finished Stormvale Castle, which is the first major story area. And since then, I've done a lot of open world exploring, and I will say, I think FromSoft have done an excellent job with the open world in this game. I think it is one of the best examples of how to do an open world. But I am a fan of FromSoft's past games. This game shines when it gets back to what FromSoft know and love. When you get into a castle and you can't summon your horse, and you're just hoofing it, one step at a time around corridors and hallways, and trying to figure out this maze of a castle and how that door's locked. I can't go that way. And then you go an hour later, you loop back around and open that door, and you're like, oh, I'm back here, right? The classic FromSoft level design. That is where the game is at its peak, in my opinion. I just now started my second dungeon. It's another castle, and it is just as phenomenal. When I love the open world, and I think it facilitates a really cool, like, I've explored this region and now here I'm going up into this dungeon. I kind of like the juxtaposition.
Yeah, me
But
too.
at the same time, it's made me realize I don't need FromSoft games to be open world from here on out either. I'd be fine if they mixed it up after this game and we get another more traditional FromSoft game. I saw something earlier about Miyazaki and how in his free time he enjoys creating levels and worlds. And you're like,
You can feel it.
I totally see it, because the dude is a genius. Like, the level design in FromSoft games are unparalleled. There's been other games that try to mimic the Souls-like experience, but one of the major factors is the level design and how just completely maze-like and unknowable it is. And yet you want to, you try to get this picture of where you're at and where you need to go in your mind, and it's just so fantastic. So I've been loving those moments in the game. Especially, I love that they're still there. This game would have lacked so much if it didn't have those dungeon like experiences.
Yeah.
But that's been my favorite part by far. So I don't know if you haven't gotten too far into Stormvale yet, have you? You did beat Margit on your first save.
I did. I beat Margit and I got about halfway through the castle. So I've experienced some of what you're talking about. And I really was enjoying the castle a lot. So I agree with you.
Yeah.
For me, I feel like part of what shines about Elden Ring is the merging of the two in a really fun way. It's these kind of like two beats of like, the open world lets you breathe a little bit more. You kind of get your bearings, explore. There's a wonder in exploration and finding new places. And then you get discovery and exploration within these dungeons as well. But it's kind of like breadth versus the depth of some of these specific levels. And I think the two just meld really well. I agree with you. I don't know that every game needs to be this, but I feel like this was designed in a way that these two things come together beautifully. And I really like both aspects of the game.
I think it's impressive because in most games, when you take away someone's freedom or agency to traverse a world, like right, they take away your horse. Mm-hmm. Normally, in a lot of games, you would feel frustrated and like you can't wait to get back to the open world. And it's the opposite for me. I really enjoy those moments. So, but like you said, both of them work so well together, and I enjoy both quite a bit. Yeah. So they've done an awesome job. I do have a couple gripes, because who else would I be if I didn't have a couple gripes that I want to mention, and most of them are horse related. But the fact that, so like, if your horse dies in combat, and you will fight on your horse, there's certain bosses where it's much easier to fight on your horse than on foot. If your horse dies in combat,
for example,
your horse can die without you dying. And now to resummon your horse, it costs a health vial. What are they called in this game? I don't really know. Can't remember.
Oh yeah, what are flask. They're a flask of some sort.
A flask of some kind. It costs one of those to resummon your dead horse, which is fine. But every time you have to do that, a prompt comes up with yes or no and asks you, do you want to consume this flask to resurrect your horse? Well, when you're in the heat of combat, that's incredibly frustrating. I was fighting something on my horse. My horse died. I spent 3 or 4 tries trying to resurrect my horse, but the time it took to confirm and then summon the horse was so long, I kept getting killed. And I was just like, this is such a, like, how did this get through playtesting? Like, maybe the first time it should tell you, and then from then on, it should just let you know, hey, a flask was consumed. A flask was consumed. So you know where it went. Like, I get them wanting to communicate that, but that is not great. The other thing is, I don't like that I can't open my map. And in fact, my map will close if I'm looking at my map and something in combat is engaged. Like something notices me, my map will close.
Yeah,
Or
I'm
there's
fine
been
if
moments where
let it still attack me because I know that's how they do these things, but at
Yeah.
least let me look at the thing because I'm trying to remember where I'm going.
Yeah, and why can I open my menu and look at my inventory while being killed, but I can't look at my map? It
Exactly.
doesn't make
Yeah.
sense. It's frustrating. There's been so many times where something noticed me, I gallop 200 yards away, and I have to wait like 5 seconds. It keeps rejecting my map button because it won't open. Frustrating. And lastly, horse fall damage feels really inconsistent. I love how far you can fall as just a person. You can fall a long ways.
Pretty
For any of
far.
you who've
Yeah.
played old FromSoft games, fall damage was brutal. Here you can fall far longer of a distance than you could in real life, and you're fine. But on the horse, it feels really inconsistent. Like there's times where I've thought, okay, I'm fine, I can jump off this, and it kills my horse and me. Or there's times where like I can't tell for sure if, because your horse can double jump, I can't tell for sure if the double jump
Helps
mitigates the
you.
distance
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
all. I've tried to do some hypothesizing and some scientific experiments here, and I literally can't tell. It feels inconsistent. Sometimes it feels like, oh, if I double jump right before the ground, it does take away
I've had
fall
the same
damage.
thing where like once I
And
did
then other
that,
times I
I
die.
did the double jump and then I still died. And then another one I tried it and I survived. And I'm like, I can't tell if like, did I jump
Yeah.
from a slightly lower height differential? I don't know.
So I've been trying to figure it out, and I've just come to the conclusion that it is inconsistent and it's very poorly communicated. And I'm at the point now where I literally don't know. I might just get off the horse and jump off normally because I don't know what to expect if I jump off with the horse, which feels kind of backwards. It feels like with the double jump, you should be able to use that mechanic to mitigate your fall damage. I don't know if they programmed it this way because it broke certain areas of the game, being able to jump. Obviously, you shouldn't be able to jump off a
Probably.
300-foot cliff and then double jump right at the bottom and survive. There needs to be some difference, but I think the main thing for me is consistency. As a player, I don't know what to expect when I jump off of something with my horse. So
I feel like part of the problem though is it's hard to gauge exactly how far certain things you start hitting a certain scale, and it's like, well, is this 80 feet or 100 feet or 150 feet? Like there's certain scales where it's like it's harder to narrow in on exactly how high you are, and I think that's maybe part
yeah.
of the problem. But I totally agree with you. Um, it's pretty frustrating.
But anyways, minor gripes. I've been enjoying it. Only other thing I've been playing is just a cheap game I got on sale. It's called Golf Club Wasteland, and it's an indie title I had my eyes on for a while. I don't know. Have you seen anything about that game?
No, but we have Golf Club Wasteland, and we have was it Curse Golf or something coming out?
Oh yeah.
Seems to be a theme.
So this is a very minimalistic game. It's basically set in a post-apocalyptic world where
Kind of neat.
supposedly humans have colonized Mars, and now the wealthy will return to Earth to golf in
That's
the
hilarious.
radioactive
In the
waste that is the
wasteland.
planet, right?
Oh,
And so
man,
it's kind of a funny premise. It's cool.
Yeah.
You're just this solo dude who's back on Earth golfing,
That's
and
hilarious.
it's very simple mechanically. You use the analog stick to pick a trajectory, and depending on how far you tilt it, it's you hit it harder or not, and then you use X or circle to hit it, and that's really all the mechanics there are in this game.
Yeah.
But
This looks kinda fun.
it's satisfyingly simple to play. The art style is great, and then the other thing is that it's just really chill to play because in the background there's a radio station, and I forget what the radio station is called, but basically they're talking. It's people talking about stories from back on Earth when everything hit the fan, or and then in between stories you'll get this really cool music. Like the music has been really dope so far, and it's just it legitimately feels like you're listening to a radio station / podcast while golfing on a post-apocalyptic world, and it's just the vibes are immaculate. Like it's really cool. It was like $4. It might be on sale now, so go check it out.
Yeah.
And
I'll
it's
have
fun.
to add that to my list. That sounds great.
It's one of those really simple palette cleanser, completely different
Mhm.
kind of games. Not a lot to it. It's got a platinum for those of you who care. So I've actually been pleasantly surprised that one turned out as good as kind of I was hoping it would back when I first caught a glimpse of it. So other than that, the last thing I want to mention here before we wrap up this very long episode here of NeverQuest, I put in my new SSD for the PlayStation 5. I got a new 1 terabyte SSD, installed it.
Right.
Very easy process, no problem whatsoever. But in the process, I did a bunch of cleaning up on my hard drive because your captures, your video captures start to take up a lot of room and whatnot. And as I was looking at my storage on my PlayStation 5, I saw this other category named other, right? You've got like games, captures, there's something else I can't remember, and then other. And I was like, for a while I thought, oh, that's the operating system. That's the operating system of the PS5. But then I realized, no, this is out of 667 gigs. The SSD on the PS5 is like 850. So it's already accounting for that operating system, right? So this is in addition to that. Sure enough, I Google it, and yeah, it says it's storage needed to run apps and games, and depending on how you use your system, it will take up more or less room, but it's incredibly ambiguous. I did some research into it. People really don't understand or know exactly what makes it blow up or what it is. And I spent quite a bit of time trying to kind of isolate why, because mine had blown up to 120 gigs is kind of where this started. I'm like, why am I losing 120 gigs here to something I have no idea what it is. Long story short, I ended up getting all of my captures off the system, resetting the PlayStation 5 to get it back down. Right now it's at 9 or 10 gigs. And what a dumb thing. I don't understand. It's just it's so poorly communicated, and the fact that it can take up a fifth of your system's memory, and it's just called other. What are we doing here?
If it was only, if it was under 10 gigs, then you kind of just write it off like whatever. I'm not going to worry about that. But if it can get up to 120 gigs, like that is insane. I'll have to look at mine and see what that's at.
You'll have to let me know what you said, because I saw that and I'm just like, how is this? It's just another one of those things where it's like, what is Sony doing here with we all hate the fact that it has to copy a download when it's done. That's kind of a well-known gripe. Mm-hmm. But this one I feel like goes under the radar. I think a lot of people aren't realizing that maybe they're losing a fifth or more of their hard drive to whatever this is. I tried deleting just about everything I could to get rid of it, and it stayed at 120 until I reset the PS5. So it's something I'll be monitoring from here on out. Every time I download a game or do anything, I'll be kind of keeping tabs on it to see what makes it tick. But PSA, keep an eye on your other category for your storage, because it'll rob you. Hopefully it won't be a problem for me for here on out, because I have like 1,500 gigs now, so should be fine. I also moved all of my media over to my I bought an external hard drive for PS4 games forever ago. It's like a 2 terabyte, so now I have all my media on that, and I'm just gonna keep it on that. But
you should be set for a while.
Yeah, I should be set, and hopefully you'll be able to find something on sale and open up your space a little bit. But one last thing I wanted to shout out to was the PlayStation app with its update that allows you to download media from your captures if they're 3-minute videos or less, or screenshots. Obviously I would like to see them be able to make that manual, where I can just send something to my phone that I took 6 months ago. But other than that, it works really well. It's pretty cool. I sent you a video from a lap time I did on Gran Turismo, and it comes up perfectly clear. I hope on your experience.
Yeah,
mine,
it looked great.
Yeah.
I watched it on my phone, so it's like, not a humongous screen, but it looked good watching it on my phone.
Yeah. And the other thing is that the screenshots, by the way, you can take a screenshot of a screenshot and get it to upload, right? So there's a hack for that. Mm-hmm. But It's really cool, because I've in the past, for a background on my phone, I'll take a picture of my TV, for a screenshot, and it never quite comes out very well, right? There's always glare or different angles or whatever. Mm-hmm. Being able to send a screenshot and download it in seconds on my phone is really cool. I've been able to get a whole bunch of screenshots I took off of PlayStation, and they make excellent backgrounds. They're like full resolution. There's no blurriness. There's no weirdness. So shout out to that. I love that they've implemented that, and I hope they continue to roll that out to more people and kind of add some features to it, because that's something we've talked about, is being able to share your gameplay and your photos, and how hard that kind of is to do. Mm-hmm. This mitigates that quite a bit.
Yeah. Super dope. Thanks, PlayStation, for once.
Yeah, you're the best, PlayStation. Please fix Gran Turismo 7. Okay, well, I've said all I have to say. Do you have anything left in the tank, or are we gonna wrap it up?
That's it for now. I haven't played as many video games this past week, so
Okay.
I should probably sign off and start playing some Elden Ring if I
You
want
need
to
to
be
call in
responsible.
sick for a couple days here,
Couple
for the
months.
sake of
If I
the
want to
channel.
finish Elden Ring, I need to take like a, I don't know,
Can
paternal
you take
leave.
like paternal leave? Yeah, paternity
Without a
leave. There you
kid,
go.
it's a little hard. I mean, I guess I could.
I mean, you could fudge some documents or something, like
Yeah,
Photoshop a new third kid somewhere.
right. Just copy the birth certificate from a
Like,
previous
how
kid,
hard
just
are they
change
going to
the
look
date.
into that? Honestly, when you say I need paternal time off, like,
I don't know.
how hard are they going to look into that? They might be like, oh, okay.
If it's the first
okay.
time at a company, they're probably not going to look too hard.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Life hack. That's how you finish Elden Ring. Oh, man. All right. Well, thanks for sticking with us for this longer than usual NeverQuest, where we get everything off our chest and talk about this nonsense. If you stayed till the end, we appreciate you. Remember, you can find us over on Patreon at patreon.com/NeverLag. And if you're feeling really generous, help us out. Throw a like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell, all that stuff. And yeah, we'll catch you next time on NeverLag.